Brits are being warned net zero costs could send energy bills soaring, surprise, surprise, beyond the levels seen at the height of the Ukraine-Russia war.
Well, the boss of British Gas now says electricity prices are set to rise sharply by 2030, driven by tens of billions of pounds needed for grid upgrades and new infrastructure across the country. In simple terms, households footing the bill for net zero infrastructure.
Well, joining us now is the Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho. Now, Claire, we were told that we were going to be saving £300 because of net zero and that it would eventually cost us less.
Well, I mean, that £300 promise that Ed Miliband made at the last election is simply garbage. It was never based on anything. There was never a plan behind it. It was just a completely fake promise. But what an energy boss has said today, which I think is a really important point in the argument that I've been making, is that you cannot look at the cost of wind and solar alone. What they do is they add an enormous amount of cost to the system. So you have to build, for example, a huge amount of grid connections to take this energy down from where it is, which might be the top of Scotland, to where the need is, which might be down in the south, for example. You also are paying an increasing amount to turn wind and solar off when they're overproducing. So at the moment, we spend £1 billion turning wind farms off. It's just a remarkable thing, not to produce any energy, but simply to turn off. That's going to £8 billion by 2030. Now, if you look at all of those costs to the system, what you're ending up doing is making your electricity really expensive. And the case that I've been making is the primary focus of any energy secretary right now should be to make our electricity cheap. It's the biggest problem that we've got. It's hurting industry, it's harming our ambitions in AI, and it's crushing living standards.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Now, what Ed Miliband has been saying for the last few years is that the reason our energy is expensive is there was a war in Ukraine, and the gas price shot up, and it's gas that makes our energy expensive, particularly our electricity. But now energy bosses seem to be saying that even if the gas price comes down, our bills still go up. How does that make sense?
Because that wholesale price is now a minority on the bill. It's about 40% at the moment. And you've got all of these policy extra fixed costs that sit on top of it. And those costs are going up and up. It's costs of building out the grid, for example. That sits outside of the wholesale cost, that price of gas. And people can feel that at home, right? Because they can see that their gas bill has fallen and their electricity bill has gone up. Now, Ed Miliband will say gas is the problem, but how can that be if your gas bill is coming down? Actually, it's all of these other extra costs.
What do you say to those campaigners who say, actually, we don't need to fund it through bills? We could put this on general taxation and instead, as some other countries do, make bills be more about bills and less about infrastructure.
Well, we've set out a cheap power plan to cut bills by 20%, and that is the philosophy. What we want to do is take those extra costs of bills, because if you make your energy really expensive, you have all of these other problems for jobs, for industry, for living standards, and it's completely counterproductive. So at the last election, we actually said no more levies going on to energy bills, and actually we want to start taking them off. So our cheap power plan would start to do that, and it's 20% off bills. And Ed could do that tomorrow if he really cared about living standards. He could take those costs off.
So does that mean that the Conservative Party would abandon net zero? Or would you be heading towards that? Or?
I think we've been quite candid that we made mistakes in the past. You know, Kemi Badenoch was one of the only 2 MPs who spoke up when that legislation was being passed and asked about the costs. But my view is that we should never have signed up to legislation without knowing what the cost was. And what you're doing now is creating a system where civil servants can control every single part of the economy, tell people what to buy, in how much quantities, in what year. And that is an incredible command and control economy, which is not good for the country. And actually, we need to do in the priorities that the public want, which is to have cheaper electricity.
So, but will you abandon net zero?
Yeah, we've said we would repeal the Climate Change Act.
Okay, good.
Now, speaking of command and control, the second largest economy in the world is largely a command and control economy. The Prime Minister was recently in Beijing and Shanghai signing deals. You've been highlighting a deal that seemed to not get highlighted by the government, some sort of secret China deal on energy.
Well, this is completely unheard of. Ed Miliband last year went to China. He signed us up to an energy deal that he's refusing to publish. I think I signed 4 energy deals with other countries when I was Energy Secretary. Every single one I published. And if you think about the sensitivities of doing an energy deal with China, the fact that he's refusing to publish it is completely evading scrutiny is remarkable. So yes, we have been chasing him down on this, forcing him to answer questions, because I've never seen anything like it. An energy secretary that wants to do a deal on the taxpayers' behalf and not tell them what's in it.
What is the concern about what might be in there?
Well, firstly, we know that intelligence services around the world have warned that China might want to disrupt our energy system. That's something which is coming from very respected intelligence services. So there's a question of national security, but also in terms of jobs, in terms of industry. We know that at the moment, because our energy prices are so high, we are losing jobs to China in the name of climate change, which is still 60% powered by coal. It's completely absurd. So we need to see what was in this deal so we can judge whether it's in the public interest.
Would you as a government, if you were to get back into power, would you open up coal fields and things like that? Would you frack? Would you look at all the opportunities available that we have currently in this country to utilise as an energy source?
So on the whole, I think we've got a lot of distortions in the energy market. You've had lots of people over the years pushing this or pushing that. We need to try and get away from the distortions. The thing that I've said that we would do is get rid of the carbon tax, because that is pushing up the price of something that we need, which is our gas dispatchable power. So as much as possible, I'd like to get rid of distortions, but also looking at the overall picture, what we can do in this country and what we can do considering the communities. I don't want to impose something on communities that they don't want, but we also need to make sure we get the energy we need.
OK. Well, Claire Coutinho, thanks indeed for coming into the studio, the Shadow Energy Secretary, of course.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Now, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero has been contacted for comment on this story, and we'll bring that to you as and when we get it.
Well, I think it's a shocker, though, Ed Miliband. We want to see what exactly you're signing. What deal are you doing with China?